1 year after the Battle of Epsilon 7, the Galactic Council formally adopted what historians would later call the most important military doctrine in galactic history. The Deathworld Doctrine fundamentally changed how the galaxy approached crisis situations and extreme environment operations. Ambassador Lisa Park stood before the same council chamber where humanity had once been dismissed and restricted. Now the galleries were packed with representatives eager to hear Earth's latest proposals for expanding human involvement in galactic affairs. The transformation was remarkable. Where once there had been empty seats and bored representatives, now every space was filled. Aliens who had previously mocked the deathworlders now hung on every word from the human delegation. Speaker Veltar called the session to order, but his tone was entirely different from a year ago. Where once there had been condescending authority, now there was genuine respect mixed with a healthy dose of caution. We are gathered today to formalize humanity's new role in galactic security and exploration, Veltar announced. The success of human operations over the past year has demonstrated capabilities that we clearly underestimated. Lisa smiled as she stood to address the assembly. Speaker Veltar, members of the council, 1 year ago you told us we were too dangerous for dangerous work. Today I'm here to tell you that you were right. We are dangerous. Dangerous to pirates, dangerous to impossible odds, and dangerous to the idea that some things can't be done. The chamber buzzed with approving sounds from dozens of different species. The same aliens who had voted to restrict human activities now applauded their capabilities. General Crix rose from his position at the military advisory table. Ambassador Park, I believe I speak for military commanders throughout the galaxy when I say that human forces have exceeded every expectation. The question now is how we can best utilize these capabilities. The answer is simple, Lisa replied. Stop thinking of us as a last resort and start thinking of us as a first option for any situation involving extreme conditions, high risk, or supposedly impossible objectives. Admiral Jake Miller, now commanding the Deep Space Exploration Command, joined the presentation via quantum link from his flagship far beyond the galactic rim. Behind him, the bridge of the mighty USS Frontier showed the controlled chaos of a ship operating in conditions that would be immediately fatal to most species. Council members, Miller said. In the past year, human exploration teams have mapped 47 star systems that were previously considered too dangerous to approach. We've discovered 6 habitable worlds in regions marked as dead space, and we've established mining operations in sectors where other species can't even send survey probes. The data displays showed Miller's discoveries: new worlds rich with resources, trade routes through previously impassable regions, and scientific discoveries that had advanced galactic knowledge by decades. How many of these discoveries would have been possible using conventional exploration methods? Asked a Vortan representative. None, Miller replied simply. Every single one of these systems would have killed conventional exploration teams before they could complete their missions. Radiation levels, gravitational anomalies, hostile environments, what other species call impossible conditions, we call Tuesday. Commander Sarah Blake appeared on another screen, reporting from a counter-terrorism operation in the Gamma sector. Her Special Operations Command had just completed another mission that other military forces had declared impossible. In the past year, Blake reported, human special forces have completed 37 operations in environments too hostile for conventional troops. 0 mission failures, 0 civilian casualties, and a 100% success rate in scenarios that other military planners classified as hopeless. The statistics were overwhelming in every category that mattered: crisis response, extreme environment operations, high-risk missions, and impossible rescues. Human forces had not just succeeded, but had redefined what success looked like. Speaker. Veltar stood to address the chamber. Based on these results, the Council proposes to formally establish the Deathworld Doctrine as official galactic policy. This doctrine recognizes that species evolved in extreme conditions possess unique advantages when operating in similarly extreme situations. The formal language was diplomatic, but everyone understood what it really meant. When impossible jobs needed doing, call the humans. Furthermore, Veltar continued, Earth will be granted permanent seats on the Military Advisory Board, the Exploration Committee, and the Crisis Response Council. Human forces will be given priority authorization for all operations in hazardous environments. The vote was unanimous. Not a single species opposed the measure. The same council that had once banned humans from dangerous work now formally recognized them as the galaxy's premier crisis response force. But even as they celebrated this victory, a new challenge was emerging. Long-range sensors had detected something in the distant void sector that was causing concern throughout the galaxy. Admiral Alex Turner appeared on the main display from his position at the edge of known space. His expression was serious as he delivered his report. "Council members," Turner said, "our deep space monitoring stations have detected large-scale movement in the void sector. Unknown vessels, possibly a fleet, approaching from dark space beyond our current exploration range." The chamber fell silent. The void sector was beyond even human exploration capabilities, a region of space so hostile that it had never been successfully mapped. If something was coming from there, it represented a threat unlike anything the galaxy had faced before. "What are we looking at, Admiral?" asked General Crix. "Unknown at this time," Turner replied. "But whatever it is, it's big, it's organized, and it's heading toward inhabited space. Our best estimates put it at the outer edge of the frontier. Zone within 6 months." The implications sank in quickly. This was exactly the kind of crisis that the galaxy had learned to depend on human forces to handle. But this time, even the deathworlders might be facing something beyond their capabilities. "Admiral Turner," Speaker Veltar said carefully, "what does humanity recommend?" Turner's expression was grim but determined. "We recommend doing what we always do when faced with the impossible. We go take a look, figure out what we're dealing with, and find a way to handle it." Ambassador Lisa Park stood up one final time. "Council members, a year ago you mocked us for being deathworlders. You said we were too dangerous, too reckless, too willing to take impossible risks. You were right about all of that." She paused, looking around the chamber at faces that now showed respect instead of dismissal. "But you forgot something important," she continued. "We didn't become dangerous by choice. We became dangerous because our world taught us that the alternative to being dangerous was being dead. And we've spent our entire evolution learning one simple lesson. When something threatens what you care about, you don't back down. You don't negotiate. You don't calculate acceptable losses. You find a way to win." The chamber was completely silent as her words sank in. "So yes," Lisa said, "we're deathworlders. We're dangerous, reckless, and willing to take impossible risks. And when whatever's coming from the void sector arrives, you're going to be very glad that the dangerous species is on your side." As the council session ended and representatives began filing out, the mood was one of nervous anticipation. A new threat was coming, something unknown and potentially hostile from the darkest regions of space. But for the first time in galactic history, the civilized species faced such a threat with confidence. They had the deathworlders on their side now. The species that had learned to fight back against a world trying to kill them was ready to fight for the galaxy that had finally learned to respect them. In the depths of space, human fleets moved toward the void sector, ready to face whatever impossible challenge awaited them. They carried with them the hopes of 100 species and the hard-won knowledge that sometimes the most dangerous people are exactly who you want when things get truly dangerous. The galaxy had learned to stop mocking the deathworlders. Now it was time to see what the deathworlders could do when the impossible became necessary once again. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, watching the stars streak past through the viewport. The ship moved smoothly through space, carrying diplomats and trade representatives to another peaceful meeting between humans and aliens. It was the year 2387, and the galaxy had been quiet for 300 years. "Captain, we're approaching Kepler Station," said his navigation officer, Lieutenant Pete Jackson. "All systems green." Jake nodded. These routine trips had become so normal that he barely thought about them anymore. Human ships traveled freely through alien space, and alien ships did the same through human territory. Trade flowed between worlds, like water through pipes. Wars were things people read about in history books. Lieutenant Amy Sullivan looked up from her science station. She was the ship's expert on alien life, and Jake respected her sharp mind. "Sir, I've been reviewing the passenger manifest. We have representatives from 12 different species aboard." "That's good," Jake said. "Shows how well everyone gets along these days." Amy frowned slightly. "Yes, but I've noticed something strange during our stops. The younger alien species seem confused about certain protocols." "What kind of protocols?" Jake asked. "The Prime Directive, sir. The rule that all Confederation members follow." Jake knew the rule well. Every human child learned it in school. The Galactic Confederation had only one absolute law that all species must obey. Do not provoke the humans. It seemed simple enough, and for 3 centuries, everyone had followed it without question. "What's confusing about it?" Jake asked. Amy pulled up data on her screen. "Well, when I ask younger species about why the rule exists, they can't give me a clear answer. They just say it's always been that way. But when I ask the older species, they get nervous and change the subject." Jake thought about this. The Horizon had visited dozens of worlds in the past year, and he had noticed that some of the newer Confederation members seemed to question human authority more than others. But he had assumed it was just normal political disagreement. "Maybe it's just cultural differences," he suggested. "Maybe," Amy said, but she didn't sound convinced. The ship's communication system buzzed. "Captain Morrison to the docking bay. Our passengers are ready to disembark." Jake made his way through the ship's corridors. The Horizon was not a large vessel, but it was comfortable and well-equipped for diplomatic missions. The human crew of 40 worked alongside alien observers from various species, all committed to maintaining peace in the galaxy. In the docking bay, he found the usual mix of beings preparing to leave the ship. There were the tall, blue-skinned Altarians with their graceful movements, the stocky, rock-like granite folk who spoke in slow, deep voices, the quick, bird-like Zephyrians with their bright feathers and sharp eyes. Ambassador Lisa Grant was. Among them, an experienced diplomat who had spent 20 years working with alien governments. She approached Jake with a tired expression. "Another successful trip, Captain," she said. "Though I have to say, some of our passengers asked difficult questions this time." "What kind of questions?" "About human history. About why we have special status in the Confederation." I gave them the standard answers, but they didn't seem satisfied. Jake noticed a group of young Zephyrians nearby, speaking quietly among themselves. Their language sounded like rapid chirping, but the ship's translation system picked up fragments of their conversation. "Why should we bow to humans?" one was saying. "They're not stronger than us. They're not smarter than us. What makes them so special?" An older Zephyrian quickly hushed the speaker, glancing nervously toward Jake. The young ones fell silent, but Jake could see the questions in their eyes. After the passengers left, Jake returned to the bridge. Amy was still at her station, reviewing data from their stops at various worlds. "Find anything interesting?" he asked. "Actually, yes. I've been looking at historical records from different species. Captain, did you know that before humans joined the Confederation, there were constant wars between alien races?" Jake settled into his command chair. "I know there was conflict, but the details were never clear in my history classes." "That's just it," Amy said. "The details aren't clear anywhere. It's like someone deliberately removed information from the records. But I can piece together fragments. Before 2087, the galaxy was a very violent place. Species fought over resources, territory, ideology. Millions died in these wars. And then humans arrived and helped bring peace. That's the official story. But, Captain, I've been doing some calculations. When humans first made contact with the Confederation, we had just developed faster-than-light travel. We were barely advanced enough to reach other star systems. How did we become so influential so quickly? Jake had never thought about it that way. Human history taught that their ancestors were skilled diplomats who helped negotiate peace between warring alien factions. The Prime Directive was supposedly created to honor humanity's role as peacemakers. Maybe our ancestors were just better at negotiations, he suggested. Amy shook her head. "I don't think so, sir. I've been studying the timeline. The wars stopped very suddenly in 2087. Not gradually, like you'd expect from successful diplomacy. They just stopped. And immediately afterward, the Prime Directive was established." The ship's communication system crackled to life. "Captain Morrison, this is Kepler Station Control. We have an urgent message for Lieutenant Sullivan." Amy looked surprised. "For me? I wasn't expecting anything." The message came through on her personal channel. Jake watched as Amy's expression changed from curiosity to concern to alarm. "What is it?" he asked. "It's from Dr. Alex Carter at the Human Colonial Archive. He says he's been researching the same questions I've been asking. Captain, he says there are classified records on Earth that might have answers, but he needs security clearance to access them." Jake felt a strange uneasiness in his stomach. "What kind of classified records?" "Military records from the early period of human-alien contact. Captain, Dr. Carter says that according to his preliminary research, the official history of human integration into the Confederation might not be complete." Before Jake could respond, Lieutenant Jackson called out from his station. "Captain, we're receiving a priority communication from Earth. It's Admiral Karen Stone." Jake had met Admiral Stone once years ago. She was one of the highest-ranking officers in the Human Defense Council, responsible for protecting human space. She rarely contacted individual ship captains directly. "Put her through," Jake said. Admiral Stone's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired and worried. "Captain Morrison, I need to ask you about your recent passenger manifest. Did you transport any Zephyrian delegates on this trip?" "Yes, ma'am. Several. Is there a problem?" "We're not sure yet." "Captain, I want you to file a detailed report on any conversations you overheard, any questions they asked, any signs of hostility or suspicion toward human authority." Jake felt the uneasiness growing stronger. "Admiral, has something happened?" Stone paused before answering. Captain, we've received reports from several sectors that younger alien species are beginning to question the Prime Directive more openly. Some are calling it an outdated law that gives humans unfair advantages. We're monitoring the situation. After the communication ended, Jake stood alone on the bridge with Amy. The peaceful galaxy suddenly felt less peaceful. Captain, Amy said quietly, I think we need to find out what really happened 300 years ago. Jake nodded slowly. Something was stirring in the galaxy, something that had been sleeping for 3 centuries. And he had a feeling that, when they found the truth, nothing would ever be the same again. Dr. Alex Carter sat in his small office at the Human Colonial Archive on New Denver, staring at a computer screen filled with search results. Amy Sullivan's message had arrived 3 days ago, and since then he had been diving deep into historical records that most people never bothered to read. The Colonial Archive was humanity's largest collection of historical documents, stored in a massive underground facility beneath the capital city. Alex had worked there for 15 years, helping researchers and students find information about human expansion into space. Usually his work involved simple requests for dates, names, and basic facts. This time was different. Alex pulled up another file and frowned. The document was labeled Military Operations 2085-2090, but when he tried to open it, a red message appeared. Classified, Level 9 clearance required. He had Level 5 clearance, which was enough to access most historical records. Level 9 was reserved for current military secrets. Why would 100-year-old history be classified at Level 9? He muttered to himself. His assistant, Dr. Maria Santos, knocked on his office door. She was a young historian who specialized in alien-human diplomatic records. Alex, I found something weird, she said, holding a data pad. Remember you asked me to look for records of the first human-alien peace negotiations? Yes. Find anything useful? Maria sat down across from his desk. That's the problem. I can't find detailed records of any peace negotiations. The official history says humans helped end the alien wars through skilled diplomacy, but there are no transcripts, no meeting records, no diplomatic correspondence. Alex leaned back in his chair. Maybe they were lost over time? That's what. I thought, but Alex, we have detailed records of much smaller events from that period. Trade agreements, shipping manifests, even personal letters between colonists. But the most important diplomatic achievement in human history? Nothing. Alex showed her his screen full of classified files. I'm running into the same problem. Look at this. Maria read the file titles. Military operations, fleet deployment records, weapons development projects. Alex, why would humans need extensive military records if they were just acting as peacekeepers? Good question. Alex opened a new search window. Let me try something different. Instead of looking for human records, let me search for alien records from that time period. His fingers flew over the keyboard. The archive contained not just human documents, but also records obtained through centuries of cooperation with alien governments. If he couldn't find human accounts of the peace negotiations, maybe alien records would fill in the gaps. The results were even more puzzling. Look at this, Alex said, pointing at the screen. I found records from the Altarian government dated 2086. They mention something called the human response, but the details are marked as too sensitive for historical record. Maria pulled out her data pad. I have something similar here. Granite Folk mining records from 2087 mention compliance with human demands, but don't explain what those demands were. Alex opened another file. Here's one from the Morden archives. It just says, the demonstration was sufficient. All conflicts suspended as agreed. What demonstration? Maria asked. I don't know, but look at the date. This was written 1 week after the official end of the last alien war. Alex's computer chimed with an incoming message. It was from Admiral Karen Stone's office, marked urgent. Dr. Carter, Admiral, Stone requests an immediate consultation regarding your current research project. Please report to Earth Defense Headquarters within 24 hours. Alex felt his stomach drop. How did the military know about his research? He had been careful to use only standard academic access protocols. Maria, I think we're getting into something bigger than we realized. What do you mean? Alex stood up and began packing his research files. The military is asking to see me. They don't usually pay attention to historians unless we're getting close to something they want to keep secret. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Ambassador Lisa Grant sat in her office at the Galactic Council headquarters on Centris Prime. Through her window, she could see the massive towers where representatives from hundreds of alien species worked to maintain peace and cooperation across the galaxy. Her door chimed, and her assistant announced a visitor. Ambassador, Elder Thaxis of the Morden wishes to speak with you. Grant felt surprised. Elder Thaxis was one of the oldest members of the Council, representing a species that had been spacefaring for over 1,000 years. The Morden rarely spoke directly to human representatives, preferring to work through intermediaries. Thaxis entered her office moving slowly on 4 thick legs. The Morden looked like a cross between an elephant and a turtle, with thick gray skin and ancient, intelligent eyes. Thaxis had been a member of the Council for over 2 centuries. Elder Thaxis, this is an honor, Grant said. How can I help you? The old alien settled into a specially designed chair. When he spoke, his voice was deep and careful. Ambassador, Grant, I come to you with concerns about recent developments in the Council. What kind of developments? The younger species grow restless. They ask questions about the old agreements. They wonder why humans hold special status in our confederation. Grant chose her words carefully. The Prime Directive exists to maintain peace. It has served us well for 3 centuries. Thaxis's large eyes fixed on her. Yes, it has maintained peace. But, Ambassador, do you know why that peace was necessary? Because before human integration, the galaxy was torn by constant warfare between species. That is true, but incomplete. Thaxis leaned forward. Ambassador, I was alive during those wars. I remember the chaos, the destruction, the millions who died. But I also remember what ended those wars. Human diplomacy ended them. Thaxis was quiet for a long moment. Ambassador Grant, there are some truths that have been simplified for the sake of peace. But if the younger species continue to question the old agreements, those truths may become relevant again. Grant felt a chill run down her spine. Elder Thaxis, what are you trying to tell me? I am trying to tell you that the Prime Directive was not created to honor human diplomatic skills. It was created because the alternative was too terrible to consider. Before Grant could ask what he meant, her communication device buzzed with an urgent message. It was from Captain Morrison aboard the UES Horizon. Ambassador, we've received reports of Zephyrian military movements in Sector 7. Their fleet has been conducting what they call training exercises near human colonies. Grant looked at Thaxis, who had gone very still. Elder, is this related to what you're telling me? Thaxis rose slowly from his chair. Ambassador, I suggest you contact your government immediately. the young Zephyrians do not remember why the Prime Directive exists. If they continue down this path, they may discover the answer in a way that benefits no one. After Thaxis left, Grant sat alone in her office, staring out at the peaceful towers of the Galactic Council. For the first time in her 20-year career, she wondered if the peace she had spent her life protecting was built on foundations she didn't understand. She opened a secure channel to Earth. Back on New Denver, Alex Carter was packing the last of his research when Maria burst into his office. "Alex, you need to see this. I found something in the deep archives." She handed him a data pad showing a single document, almost 300 years old. The header read, "Emergency Protocol 7, Implementation Complete." Below that was a single line of text. "All species have agreed to containment procedures. Human integration successful. No further action required unless containment fails." "Containment?" Alex read aloud. "Maria, what were they containing?" "I don't know. But Alex, look at the authorization signature." At the bottom of the document was a name Alex recognized from history books. Admiral Sarah Mitchell, the first commander of the Human Defense Council. "She was supposed to be a peacekeeper," Maria said. "But this document makes it sound like she was running some kind of military operation." Alex's communication device chimed again. This time, the message was from Dr. Carter's security clearance had been temporarily upgraded to level 7, effective immediately. "They're letting me see more files," he said. "Maria, I think someone wants me to find out what really happened 300 years ago. But why now?" Alex looked out his window at the peaceful city of New Denver, where humans and aliens lived and worked together in harmony. "Because I think that peace might be about to end." Commander Rick Hayes was enjoying a quiet morning on the bridge of the UES Guardian when the emergency alarm shattered the peace. The Guardian was a patrol ship, one of dozens that quietly watched the borders between human and alien space. Most days were routine, checking shipping manifests, escorting civilian vessels, maintaining the communication networks that kept the galaxy connected. "Commander, we're receiving a distress signal from Research Station Beta 7, announced Lieutenant Kelly Brooks from the communication station. Her voice was tight with concern. Rick moved quickly to his command chair. Research Station Beta 7 was a small scientific outpost studying the unique properties of a nearby nebula. The station housed about 400 researchers and their families, mostly humans, but with several alien scientists working on joint projects. "What's the nature of the emergency?" Rick asked. Kelly's face went pale as she listened to her headset. "Sir, they're reporting an attack. Multiple ships, unknown configuration. They're asking for immediate assistance." Rick felt his stomach drop. An attack? There hadn't been an act of aggression against human installations in over 200 years. Pirates sometimes raided cargo ships, but they never attacked scientific stations, and they certainly never attacked installations with families aboard. "All hands to battle stations," Rick ordered. "Helm, set course for Beta 7 maximum speed." The Guardian was not a warship. It was designed for patrol duty and rescue operations, equipped with defensive shields and basic weapons. But it was the only human vessel within 3 days' travel of the research station. As the ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, Rick tried to contact other human vessels in the area. The closest military ship was the UES Defender, but it was 6 days away. Several civilian ships were closer, but they had no combat capability. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the attack force," Kelly announced. "Put it on screen." The main view screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of an alien vessel. Rick immediately recognized the design, Zephyrian military configuration. The bird-like aliens wore ceremonial war feathers and combat armor. Their leader, a tall Zephyrian with bright red plumage, spoke in their chirping language. The translation system converted his words. This is War Commander Krex of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. The Human Research Station has been conducting illegal activities in Zephyrian territorial space. We demand immediate surrender of all personnel for processing. Rick stepped forward. This is Commander Hayes of the United Earthship Guardian. Research Station Beta 7 is located in neutral space under Galactic Confederation protocols. You have no authority to attack civilian researchers. Krex's feathers ruffled with what Rick recognized as Zephyrian anger. The Confederation protocols are human inventions designed to maintain your species' unfair dominance. The Zephyrian Empire no longer recognizes human authority in this sector. War Commander, you are in violation of the Prime Directive. I strongly advise you to withdraw your forces immediately. Krex made a sound that the translator rendered as harsh laughter. The Prime Directive is an ancient law with no foundation in current reality. We are young and strong. You are old and weak. The time has come for change. The transmission ended. Rick stared at the blank screen, trying to process what he had just heard. A Zephyrian commander had openly defied the Prime Directive and attacked human civilians. This was unprecedented. Commander, we're approaching Beta 7, announced the helm officer. On the screen, Rick could see the research station. It was a cluster of connected modules orbiting a small moon, designed for scientific research rather than defense. Smoke was pouring from several sections, and debris floated in space around the station. 3 Zephyrian warships circled the installation like predators. Kelly, any word from the station? Weak signal from Emergency Bay 3. They've lost main power and life support is failing in several sections. Rick made a quick decision. The Guardian was outnumbered and outgunned, but he couldn't abandon the researchers. Helm, take us in. Target their weapons systems, not their ships. We're going to give the station time to evacuate. The Guardian moved toward the battle zone. Rick knew this was probably suicide, but he also knew he couldn't live with himself if he ran away while children were dying. The Zephyrian ships detected their approach and turned to meet them. Rick's tactical officer, Lieutenant Dan Murphy, announced incoming weapons fire. Shields up, return fire, Rick ordered. The next few minutes were chaos. The Guardian's weapons were designed for anti-pirate operations, not military combat. They managed to disable the weapons on one Zephyrian ship, but their own shields were failing rapidly under concentrated enemy fire. Commander, we've got multiple hull breaches on decks 4 and 5, Murphy reported. Emergency teams to those sections. Kelly, can you reach the station? Yes, sir. They're beginning evacuation procedures. They need 15 minutes to get everyone to the escape pods. Rick looked at his tactical display. The Guardian wouldn't last 15 minutes against 3 warships. Then something unexpected happened. The Zephyrian ships suddenly stopped firing and began withdrawing. Sir, they're leaving, Murphy announced with surprise. Rick didn't understand until Kelly spoke up from communications. Commander, I'm detecting multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. It's the Altarian Peacekeeping Fleet. On the screen, Rick could see a dozen sleek blue ships surrounding the area. The Altarians were one of the older Confederation species, known for their diplomatic skills and their powerful fleet. A new voice came over the communication system, speaking in the musical tones of the Altarian language. Zephyrian vessels. This is Fleet Commander Zara of the Altarian Peacekeeping Force. You will withdraw immediately or face the consequences. War Commander Krex responded angrily. The Altarians have no business in this matter. This is between Zephyrians and humans. You have violated the Prime Directive, Commander Zara replied. All Confederation species are bound to respond. You will leave now. The Zephyrian ships retreated, but not before Krex sent one final message. This is only the beginning. The old ways are ending, and the galaxy will see what humans really are. Rick spent the next several hours coordinating rescue operations with the Altarian fleet. The final casualty count was devastating. 312 dead, including 47 children. Most of the station was destroyed, and the survivors were traumatized and confused. Dr. Ellen Price, the station's chief scientist, sat in the Guardian's medical bay with bandages covering burns on her arms. Commander, I don't understand what happened. The Zephyrians claimed we were conducting illegal research, but we were studying nebula formation. There was nothing military about our work. Rick had been wondering the same thing. Did you have any conflicts with Zephyrian representatives before this? None at all. In fact, we had 2 Zephyrian scientists working with us until last month. They left suddenly, saying they had been recalled for cultural sensitivity training. That evening, Rick sat in his quarters writing his report for Earth Command. He tried to find words to describe what he had witnessed, but kept coming back to one simple fact. For the first time in 300 years, aliens had deliberately killed human civilians. His communication device chimed with an urgent message from Admiral Karen Stone on Earth. Commander Hayes, I've read your preliminary report. I need you to understand something. What happened today changes everything. The Prime Directive has been broken, and we don't know what that means yet. Admiral, the Altarians helped us. The Confederation still seems to be holding together. Stone's expression was grim. Commander, the Altarians helped because they remember why the Prime Directive exists. But the Zephyrians clearly don't remember, and we're getting reports that other young species are beginning to ask the same questions they asked. What questions? Why humans deserve special protection. Why the galaxy should follow rules created 300 years ago. Commander, I'm ordering you back to Earth immediately. There are things you need to know. Things about human history that have been classified for 3 centuries. After the call ended, Rick stood at his window looking out at the stars. Somewhere in this peaceful galaxy, War Commander Krex was probably planning his next attack. And somewhere else, other young alien species were asking the same dangerous questions. Rick had grown up believing that humans were natural peacekeepers who had helped bring harmony to the galaxy. But as he watched the debris from Research Station Beta 7 slowly spinning in space, he began to wonder if there was more to the story. The distress beacon from the station was still transmitting, sending its automated message into the void. This is Research Station Beta 7. We are under attack. Please help us. Please remember us. Rick realized that before this was over, the galaxy might remember a lot of things that had been forgotten, and he wasn't sure anyone would like what they remembered. Dr. Alex Carter stood before the massive vault door in the depths of Luna Base, 300 kilometers beneath the moon's surface. His new Level 7 security clearance had granted him access to archives that most humans didn't even know existed. The door was marked with symbols he didn't recognize, and a simple warning. Historical Security Archive, authorized personnel only. His escort, Colonel Jennifer Mills from Earth Defense Intelligence, placed her hand on a scanner. The vault door, 3 meters thick and made of some metal Alex didn't recognize, slowly began to open, Dr. Carter, what you're about to see has been classified for 300 years, she said. The only reason you're being shown this now is because the situation with the Zephyrians has forced our hand. Inside the vault, Alex found himself in a room filled with data storage units, and, in the center, a large cylindrical chamber containing what looked like an artificial intelligence core. "Meet Prometheus," Colonel Mills said. "The last surviving AI from the pre-Confederation period." The chamber hummed to life, and a holographic figure appeared, a tall, dignified man in an old-style military uniform. "Dr. Carter," the AI said, in a calm, measured voice. "I have been waiting a long time for someone to ask the right questions." Alex felt overwhelmed. "Prometheus, I'm researching the early period of human-alien contact. The official records don't seem complete." "That is because the official records were deliberately edited to remove certain uncomfortable truths," Prometheus replied. "Dr. Carter, what do you know about humanity's condition when we first encountered alien civilizations?" Alex thought back to his history lessons. "We had just developed faster-than-light travel. We were explorers, seeking peaceful contact with other species." Prometheus's expression grew sad. "That is the story we created for later generations. The truth is more complex. Dr. Carter, humanity didn't seek contact with aliens. We were fleeing from something terrible." The AI gestured, and holographic displays filled the room showing star charts and historical data. In 2083, Earth received signals from deep space, not from alien civilizations, but from automated probes sent by our ancestors. Humans, you see, were not originally from Earth. Alex felt the world shift beneath his feet. "What do you mean?" "Humanity originated in a galaxy we called the Andromeda Cluster. Our species had grown and prospered there for thousands of years, but we made a terrible mistake. We created weapons that could destroy not just planets, but entire solar systems. When those weapons were used in a civil war, they triggered a chain reaction that began consuming our home galaxy. The holographic displays showed images that made Alex's stomach turn. Entire star systems collapsing, billions of lives ending in moments. The survivors, maybe 1 million humans total, escaped in generation ships and traveled for centuries before reaching this galaxy. They found Earth, settled it, and tried to forget their past. But the trauma of what they had done, what they had survived, changed them. Changed them how? They became obsessed with survival at any cost. When they finally developed space travel, again, and encountered alien civilizations, they saw only potential threats. Dr. Carter, the humans who first met the Galactic Confederation, were not peaceful explorers. They were traumatized refugees who had learned that the universe was a dangerous place where only the strongest survived. Meanwhile, in the outer rim of human space, Captain Jake Morrison and Lieutenant Amy Sullivan were aboard a small scout ship, investigating the wreckage they had found drifting in an asteroid field. The ship was clearly of human design, but unlike anything in current service. "Amy, can you make sense of this technology?" Jake asked as they moved through the derelict vessel's corridors. Amy ran her scanners over the ship's systems. "Captain, this is incredible. The power core alone is 10 times more efficient than anything we use today. And these weapon systems—" She paused, checking her readings again. "Sir, a single shot from this ship's main gun could destroy a moon." They reached the ship's bridge, where emergency power was still functioning. Amy connected her equipment to the ship's computer and began downloading data. "Jake, look at this," she said, her voice filled with amazement and horror. The ship's logs say it's the UES Retribution, commissioned in 2086. But according to our history books, humans only had basic patrol ships in 2086. Jake studied the captain's chair, which was surrounded by tactical displays that showed weapon systems he couldn't even identify. What else do the logs say? Amy's face went pale. Captain, this ship participated in something called Operation Stellar Dawn. It was part of a fleet of 200 similar vessels. Their mission was to demonstrate human resolve to Confederation leadership. Demonstrate how? Amy brought up a tactical display showing the ship's mission history. They destroyed the entire Kepler defense fleet in 18 minutes, 50 alien warships reduced to debris. No survivors. Jake felt sick. That can't be right. Humans were peacekeepers in that era. The logs are very detailed, Jake. This ship, this fleet, they weren't peacekeepers. They were enforcers. And according to these records, the Kepler attack was just a warning. The real demonstration came later. Amy accessed another file, and both of them stared at the screen in horror. Operation Purge Protocol, Jake read aloud. Deployment of planet-killer weapons against 3 inhabited worlds. Total population eliminated, 2.4 billion. Jake, humans didn't end the alien wars through diplomacy. We ended them by proving we could destroy entire civilizations if anyone opposed us. Back on Luna, Dr. Carter was learning similar truths from Prometheus. The traumatized humans who encountered the Confederation saw a galaxy filled with species fighting constant wars, the AI explained. They decided that the only way to ensure human survival was to make themselves so feared that no one would dare attack them. So they conquered the galaxy? Not conquered, dominated. They demonstrated their weapons on a few strategic targets, making it clear that they could destroy any species that opposed them. The alien wars ended immediately, not because of peace treaties, but because everyone was too terrified to continue fighting. Alex struggled to process this information. But then how did we become peaceful? How did the current situation develop? Prometheus showed new displays depicting the years following humanity's violent entrance into galactic politics. Some humans realized what they had become. They were horrified by their own actions and terrified that they were turning into the same monsters who had destroyed their original home. A group of military leaders, scientists, and philosophers developed a radical solution. What kind of solution? They would voluntarily suppress their own species' aggressive capabilities. Using advanced genetic therapy and psychological conditioning, they modified human nature itself. They made their descendants less violent, less aggressive, more empathetic. The humans you know today are the result of that modification program. Alex felt overwhelmed. So modern humans are artificially peaceful? The modifications were designed to be permanent, passed down through generations. For 300 years it worked perfectly. Humans became gentle, diplomatic, focused on exploration and cooperation rather than conquest. But Dr. Carter, genetic modifications can sometimes reverse under extreme stress. And the recent attack on Research Station Beta 7 has triggered responses in some humans that we haven't seen for centuries. Colonel Mills stepped forward. Dr. Carter, we're receiving reports from across human space. People are experiencing strange dreams, memories that aren't their own. Some are demonstrating knowledge of weapons and tactics they've never studied. Military personnel are finding themselves understanding technologies they've never seen before. Prometheus nodded gravely. The modifications are breaking down. The trauma of seeing human civilians killed has awakened something that was supposed to stay buried forever. What exactly is awakening? Alex asked. The Purge Protocol. It was designed as a failsafe, a way to restore humanity's original capabilities. If the species ever faced extinction, Dr. Carter, if the protocol fully activates, modern humans will revert to their ancestral state, brilliant, ruthless, and capable of destroying the galaxy to ensure their own survival. Alex stared at the holographic displays showing the history of human violence. How long do we have? Based on current stress levels in the human population, approximately 72 hours before the changes become irreversible. Colonel Mills checked her communication device. Dr. Carter, Admiral Stone wants to see you immediately. Ships are being recalled to Earth from across human space, and the Zephyrians are mobilizing their entire fleet. As they prepared to leave the vault, Alex turned back to Prometheus. Is there any way to stop the protocol? The AI was quiet for a moment. There is one possibility, but it would require humanity to make the same choice their ancestors made 300 years ago, to voluntarily change their own nature. The question is whether they can do it again, or whether this time they will choose to become monsters to protect themselves. Alex followed Colonel Mills out of the vault, carrying with him the terrible knowledge of what humanity really was and what they might become again. Above them, in the darkness of space, ships were moving toward Earth, from every corner of human space, and many of their crews were beginning to remember things they had never learned. Ambassador Lisa Grant stood in the ancient council chamber of Centris Prime, feeling smaller than she had ever felt in her 20 years of diplomatic service. Around her, representatives from hundreds of species sat in carefully arranged tiers, but today only the eldest members were present. These were beings who had lived for centuries, who remembered events that others knew only from history books. The emergency session had been called after reports reached the Council that Zephyrian forces were mobilizing across 3 sectors. Even more troubling were the reports of human ships being recalled to Earth, and strange behavior among human personnel throughout the galaxy. Elder Thaxis of the Morden slowly rose from his seat, his massive form commanding attention from every being in the chamber. When he spoke, his deep voice carried the weight of centuries. Fellow council members, the time has come to speak of things we hoped would remain forever buried. The young Zephyrians have broken the Prime Directive, and, in doing so, they have awakened something that threatens us all. A ripple of nervous energy passed through the assembled aliens. Grant noticed that many of the younger species representatives looked confused, while the older ones seemed genuinely frightened. Elder Thaxis, interrupted Senator Crix of the Zephyrian delegation, the council grows tired of vague warnings and ancient superstitions. The Zephyrian Empire demands concrete justification for human privilege in this confederation. Thaxis turned his ancient eyes toward the young Zephyrian. Senator Crix, you demand justification. Very well, but know that once this truth is spoken, it cannot be unheard. Grant felt her heart pounding as Thaxis gestured to the chamber's central display system. 300 years ago, this galaxy was consumed by endless warfare. The Altarians fought, the granite folk over mining rights. The plasma beings battled the crystal entities over energy sources. The Mordoon clashed with the Star Shepherds over territorial expansion. Billions died in conflicts that seemed to have no end. The display showed historical footage of massive space battles, burning worlds, refugee ships fleeing destruction. Then, the humans arrived, Thaxis continued. They were few in number. Perhaps 10,000 ships carrying 1 million refugees from a distant galaxy. They claimed to seek only peaceful coexistence. Senator Crix leaned forward. Yes, and they became mediators who helped end the wars through skilled diplomacy. Thaxis made a sound that Grant recognized as more than laughter, but there was no humor in it. Skilled diplomacy? Young Crix, allow me to show you the true nature of human diplomacy. The display changed, showing a small blue-green world orbiting a yellow star. This was Kepler Prime, home to 50 million Kepler Confederates. They were a peaceful species, advanced in science and art, known throughout the galaxy for their beautiful music and literature. Grant had never heard of the Kepler Confederates. According to her knowledge, Kepler Prime was an uninhabited world used for scientific research. The Keplerians made the mistake of refusing human protection during the early contact period. They declared that their world would remain neutral in the galactic conflicts, that they needed no outside assistance. The display showed what happened next, and Grant felt her blood turn to ice. A human fleet of ships, unlike anything she had ever seen, appeared around Kepler Prime. These were not the peaceful exploration vessels from human history books. These were massive angular warships covered in weapons that defied her understanding. The humans gave the Keplerians 1 hour to reconsider their position, Thaxis said quietly. When the hour passed, they demonstrated the consequences of defying human will. The display showed a single beam of energy fired from the largest human ship. When it struck Kepler Prime, the entire planet simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not shattered. It vanished, leaving only empty space where a world had been. 50 million lives ended in an instant, Thaxis said. An entire species wiped from existence as a demonstration of human power. Senator Crix had gone very quiet, his bright feathers dulled with shock. Grant found her voice. Elder Thaxis, this can't be true. Humans are peaceful. We've been peaceful for centuries. Yes, Ambassador Grant, you have been peaceful, but only because your ancestors chose to make you peaceful. Another elder spoke up, Matriarch Vera of the Altarians, her blue skin seeming to glow with inner light. The humans who destroyed Kepler Prime were not the humans of today, she said in her musical voice. Those humans were traumatized survivors from a dead galaxy, driven to violence by their own terrible history. But some among them recognized what they were becoming. The display showed new images. Humans in uniforms Grant didn't recognize, meeting with alien leaders in desperate negotiations. A faction of human leaders came to us with an unprecedented proposal, Matriarch Vera continued. They offered to surrender their weapons, to modify their own species' nature, to make themselves incapable of such violence again. In exchange, they asked only for survival, a chance to become something better than what they had been. Elder Korath of the Crystal Entities added his thoughts, his voice ringing like bells. It was the most remarkable act of self-sacrifice in galactic history. The humans voluntarily gave up their greatest strengths to protect the galaxy from themselves. Grant struggled to understand. But the genetic modifications, the psychological conditioning, how was it possible? Thaxis answered, Human science was far beyond ours, Ambassador. They had learned to manipulate matter and energy at the quantum level. Changing their own genetics was simple for them. The difficulty was not in the science, but in the choice. They had to trust that we would honor our agreement and protect them while they made themselves vulnerable. And we did honor that agreement, Matriarch Vera said. The Prime Directive was not created to give humans special privileges. It was created to protect a species that had voluntarily made itself defenseless for the good of all. Senator Crix finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. You mean the humans could have conquered the entire galaxy? Conquered? Elder Korath's crystal body flashed with bitter light. Young Crix, the humans could have sterilized every inhabited world in the galaxy within a single year. Their weapons were capable of destroying star systems, of making entire sectors of space uninhabitable. They had technologies that we still do not understand. Grant felt the chamber spinning around her. Then why didn't they? Why did they choose to become peaceful? Thaxis looked directly at her. Because, Ambassador, they had already destroyed one galaxy. They were refugees from their own catastrophic war. Survivors who had learned the ultimate cost of unlimited violence. When they saw this galaxy headed toward the same fate, they chose to break the cycle. The display showed the signing of the ancient agreement, humans and aliens working together to create the genetic modifications that would change humanity forever. The process took 5 years, Matriarch Vera explained. Gradually, the violent impulses were suppressed, the aggressive instincts redirected toward exploration and cooperation. The weapons were dismantled, the warships converted to peaceful purposes. A new generation of humans grew up knowing only peace. And it worked, Elder Korath added. For 3 centuries it worked perfectly. The modified humans became everything they had hoped to be. Gentle, wise, dedicated to helping others rather than dominating them. Grant felt a terrible understanding beginning to dawn. But now the modifications are breaking down, Thaxis nodded gravely. The attack on Research Station Beta 7 has triggered responses that we hoped never to see again. Reports are reaching us from across human space. Humans remembering skills they never learned, understanding technologies that should be beyond them, experiencing dreams of weapons and tactics from the ancient era. Senator Crix looked terrified. What does this mean for the galaxy? It means, Thaxis said quietly, that the humans may be remembering what they truly are. And if they fully remember, if the ancient protocols activate completely, then this galaxy may face the same fate as their original home. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Grant realized that every assumption she had made about human history, about her own species' nature, had been wrong. Elder Thaxis, she said, is there anything we can do to prevent this? The old Morden was quiet for a long moment. Perhaps. But it would require the same choice their ancestors made. Humans would have to voluntarily suppress their awakening abilities again. The question is whether they will make that choice, or whether this time they will decide that survival requires them to become monsters once more. Grant thought about Admiral Stone, about the reports of human ships returning to Earth, about the strange behaviors being reported throughout human space. And if they choose survival over peace? Thaxis's ancient eyes held depths of sadness that Grant could barely comprehend. Then the galaxy will learn why the Prime Directive exists, Ambassador. And I fear that this time no agreement will be possible. The humans of today were raised in peace, but their ancestors were forged in a crucible of cosmic war. If those ancestors awaken fully, they will not be interested in negotiations. The session ended with a terrible understanding hanging over the chamber. Grant returned to her quarters, knowing that everything she had believed about humanity was a lie, and that the peaceful galaxy she had. Admiral Karen Stone stood in the war room beneath Earth Defense Headquarters, staring at displays that showed information she had never wanted to see. Around her, officers worked frantically at stations that had been sealed for 3 centuries, operating systems that most of them were discovering they somehow knew how to use. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from every human colony and ship," announced Commander Beth Torres, her voice tight with confusion and fear. "Personnel are experiencing what they describe as awakening memories, knowledge and skills they've never learned." Stone nodded grimly. She was experiencing the same thing herself. Over the past 48 hours, she had found herself understanding weapon systems that existed only in classified archives, tactical strategies that were supposedly lost to history, and military protocols that she had never studied. "What's the status of the civilian population?" she asked. Dr. Rachel Kim, the chief medical officer for the Defense Council, looked up from her datapad with worry etched on her face. "Admiral, we have reports from every major human world. People are having vivid dreams about space battles, planet-killer weapons and technologies that don't officially exist. Some are demonstrating knowledge of engineering principles that are decades ahead of our current science. Are they becoming violent? Not yet, but we're seeing increased aggression, shortened tempers, and a marked change in problem-solving approaches. People are thinking more tactically, more strategically. They're seeing potential threats everywhere." Stone walked to the central display, which showed the positions of human ships throughout the galaxy. Most were heading toward Earth or forming defensive positions around major colonies, but what worried her most were the sealed vaults that were opening automatically throughout human space. "Commander Torres, status report on the sealed facilities." Torres consulted her screens. "Admiral, we have confirmed activation at 17 locations. Underground vaults that have been locked for 3 centuries are opening on their own. The contents—" She paused, checking her readings again. "Ma'am, these facilities contain weapons and technologies that our scientists say shouldn't be possible." Stone had visited one of these facilities herself on Luna. The weapons stored there were beyond anything in the current human arsenal. Devices that could crack planets, ships that could outrun light itself, and manufacturing systems that could build entire fleets in days rather than years. "Any word from Dr. Carter and Prometheus?" "They're en route, Admiral. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. Stone's communication officer called out, "Admiral, incoming transmission from Captain Morrison aboard the UES Horizon. He says it's urgent." "Put him through." Jake Morrison's face appeared on the main screen. He looked exhausted and troubled. "Admiral, we've analyzed the data from the derelict ship we found. Ma'am, the technology on that vessel is beyond anything we currently possess. But somehow my crew understands how to operate it." "What do you mean?" Lieutenant Sullivan was able to activate systems that should have required years of study to understand. "My engineer has been modifying our engines using principles that aren't in any textbook, but he says the knowledge feels natural to him." Stone felt a chill. "Jake, I need you to bring that ship to Earth immediately and monitor your crew for any signs of unusual behavior." "Admiral, there's something else. We've detected massive fleet movements in Zephyrian space. Intelligence estimates they're mobilizing every ship they have." After the call ended, Stone turned to her staff. For the first time in her 30-year career, she was considering options that terrified her. "Dr. Kim, what's the timeline for complete reversion if the protocol continues unchecked?" "Based on Prometheus's projections, we have less than 24 hours before the changes become permanent. After that, humans will be essentially the same as their pre-modification ancestors." And what were those ancestors capable of? Dr. Kim consulted her data. According to the classified files, they were brilliant strategic thinkers, ruthlessly efficient, and capable of innovations that could reshape reality itself. They were also completely willing to destroy entire star systems to protect themselves. Made a decision that she hoped she would never regret. Activate Emergency Protocol Omega. Begin evacuation of all non-essential personnel from Earth. And send a message to all human colonies. Anyone who doesn't feel safe with their current state of mind should report to medical facilities immediately. As her staff rushed to implement the orders, Stone reflected on the terrible irony of their situation. For 3 centuries, humans had been the galaxy's peacekeepers, respected and trusted by everyone. Now they were becoming the very thing that the galaxy needed protection from. Her thoughts were interrupted by an urgent alert from the detection grid. "Admiral, we're detecting a massive fleet approaching the Sol system," announced Lieutenant Bobby Chen from the tactical station. "Configuration matches Zephyrian Imperial vessels, but they're flying alongside ships from 6 other species." Windy stared at the tactical display in disbelief. "They've formed a coalition?" "It appears so, ma'am. We're counting over 800 ships total." The communication system crackled with an incoming transmission. The main screen showed War Commander Krex of the Zephyrians, but he was flanked by representatives from several other species. "Humans of Earth," Krex announced, his feathers bright with aggressive posturing. "The Free Species Coalition demands your immediate surrender. We know about your hidden weapons, your ancient crimes, and your growing threat to galactic peace." Stone stepped forward. "War Commander, you are in violation of Confederation law. Withdraw your forces immediately." "The Confederation is dead," replied General Voss of the Hegemony Forces, a bear-like alien species. "We will not bow to a species of hidden monsters. Surrender now, and you will be contained peacefully. Resist, and you will be destroyed." Stone cut the transmission and turned to her staff. Around the room, she could see the same grim understanding in every face. The galaxy's worst fears were coming true. Humans were remembering what they had once been, and everyone else was terrified. "Admiral," called Dr. Kim from her station, "I'm detecting massive physiological changes in personnel throughout the fleet. Heart rates increasing, stress hormones spiking, but also cognitive enhancements that are off the charts. People are thinking faster, seeing patterns more clearly, making connections that should take hours of analysis." Stone felt it herself. A clarity of thought that was both exhilarating and terrifying. She could see tactical solutions to the approaching crisis that involved weapons and strategies she had never studied. Part of her mind was calculating the exact positioning needed to destroy the approaching fleet with minimal human casualties. That thought terrified her more than the enemy ships. "Commander Torres, are any of our people requesting transfer to medical facilities?" "About 30% of military personnel, Admiral. They say they're frightened by their own thoughts." "But the other 70%? Torres paused. "Ma'am, they're saying they feel more capable than they ever have before. Some are volunteering for combat missions they would never have considered yesterday." Stone walked to the strategic display and studied the approaching enemy fleet. 3 days ago, she would have seen an overwhelming force that required careful diplomacy to handle. Now she saw weak points, vulnerable formations, and opportunities for devastating counterattacks. The change in her thinking was so dramatic that she barely recognized herself. "Admiral," announced the communication officer, "we're receiving a transmission from Ambassador Grant at Centris Prime." Lisa Grant's face appeared on the screen, and Stone could see the fear in her eyes. "Karen, the Council of Elders has told me everything. About our real history. About what we're becoming. They're trying to organize a peaceful solution, but the younger species are demanding action. How much time do we have, Lisa? Hours, maybe less. Karen, is it true? Are we really turning back into what our ancestors were? Stone looked around. The war room, at officers who were calmly discussing the complete destruction of an 800-ship fleet as if it were a routine training exercise. Yes, Lisa, and I'm starting to understand why the galaxy was so afraid of us. Is there any way to stop it? Stone thought about the question. Prometheus had mentioned that the reversion could be stopped, but only through the same kind of voluntary sacrifice that their ancestors had made. The humans of today would have to choose to give up their awakening power, to make themselves vulnerable again for the sake of galactic peace. But as Stone looked at the approaching enemy fleet, as she felt her own mind calculating ways to protect humanity at any cost, she wondered if they were still capable of making that choice. I don't know, Lisa, but we're about to find out what kind of people we really are. The transmission ended, and Stone turned back to her displays. In 18 hours, the enemy fleet would reach Earth. In 24 hours, the genetic reversion would be complete. Either way, the galaxy was about to remember why they had once been so afraid of humans. Stone just hoped that when it was over, there would still be a galaxy left to remember anything at all. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the ancient derelict ship they had discovered, watching as his crew operated systems they had never seen before with an ease that should have been impossible. Lieutenant Amy Sullivan sat at a console that controlled weapons capable of destroying moons, understanding its functions as if she had designed it herself. Jake, we need to get this information to Earth immediately, Amy said, her voice tight with urgency. The data core contains detailed records of something called the Purge Protocol. And according to these files, it's not just about restoring human abilities. Jake looked at the streams of data flowing across the ancient displays. His own mind was processing the information at a speed that amazed him, seeing patterns and connections that would have taken days to analyze just a week ago. What else does it do? It's a complete species modification system. Jake, our ancestors didn't just suppress human aggression, they built safeguards that would automatically activate if humanity ever faced extinction. But the system was designed by people who had already destroyed one galaxy. Their idea of survival includes options that would make the original galactic wars look like minor disagreements. Jake studied the tactical displays showing weapon systems that could sterilize star systems, manufacturing protocols for building fleets in hours instead of years, and something called reality adjustment matrices that he didn't want to understand. How long do we have? According to Prometheus's calculations, less than 12 hours before the changes become permanent. After that, humanity will be essentially the same as the refugees who first arrived in this galaxy, brilliant, ruthless, and willing to do anything to survive. The ship's communication system activated, showing Admiral Stone's face from Earth. Captain Morrison, what's your status? Admiral, we're en route to Earth with the derelict's data core. But, ma'am, you need to know what we've discovered. The Purge Protocol isn't just about military capability. It includes options for reshaping the galaxy itself if humans deem it necessary for species survival. Stone's expression grew even more grim. Captain, we have a more immediate problem. The Coalition fleet will reach Earth in 6 hours. 800 ships from 7 different species, and they're not interested in negotiations. Jake felt his enhanced mind automatically calculating tactical responses to the approaching threat. He could see weakness in their formation, ways to divide their forces, strategies for turning their own weapons against them. The thoughts came so naturally that they frightened him. "Admiral, are you experiencing the same changes we are?" "Yes, Jake. And I'm beginning to understand why our ancestors were so feared. 3 hours ago, I would have been looking for diplomatic solutions to this crisis. Now I'm calculating the exact number of ships needed to eliminate every military threat in the galaxy." Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Alex Carter stood in the underground facility with Prometheus, studying displays that showed the real scope of humanity's transformation. "Dr. Carter," the AI said, "I must tell you something that even the classified records don't fully explain. The humans who first came to this galaxy were not merely traumatized refugees. They were the survivors of a species that had learned to manipulate reality itself." Alex stared at the data streaming across the screens. "What do you mean?" "Your ancestors discovered that consciousness and quantum reality are linked in ways that most species cannot comprehend. They learned to reshape matter and energy through focused will alone. It was this ability that allowed them to build weapons capable of destroying galaxies." "Are you saying humans are psychic?" "Not in the traditional sense. But human consciousness, when properly focused and enhanced, can influence reality at the quantum level. The genetic modifications didn't just suppress aggression. They blocked access to these abilities." Alex felt a chill. "And now those blocks are breaking down?" "Yes. As the protocol activates, humans will not only remember their tactical and technological knowledge, they will regain access to abilities that allow them to reshape reality itself. Dr. Carter, your ancestors didn't just threaten the galaxy with weapons. They threatened to remake it according to their own vision of order." Colonel Mills rushed into the chamber. "Dr. Carter, Admiral Stone needs you immediately. The Coalition fleet is demanding surrender, and we've detected energy buildups around several human colonies that match signatures from the ancient weapon systems." As they rushed toward the surface, Alex tried to process what he had learned. Humanity wasn't just remembering how to be warriors. They were becoming something that could rewrite the laws of physics themselves. In the Earth Defense Command Center, Admiral Stone faced the most difficult decision in human history. On her displays, she could see the approaching enemy fleet, but she could also see readouts from human installations throughout the galaxy showing the activation of weapons systems that had been dormant for 3 centuries. "Admiral," reported Commander Torres, "we're receiving surrender demands from the Coalition fleet. They want all human military personnel to submit to containment procedures and all human worlds to accept occupation forces." Stone looked around. The command center had officers who were calmly discussing strategies that would have horrified them days earlier. The transformation was nearly complete, and she could feel her own thought processes becoming more ruthless by the hour. Status of civilian evacuations: 70% of non-essential personnel have been moved to secure facilities. But, Admiral, many of the civilians are refusing to leave. They say they want to help defend Earth. Dr. Kim approached with her latest medical reports. "Admiral, the physiological changes are accelerating. We're seeing cognitive enhancements that are literally off our measurement scales. People are solving complex problems in minutes that should take teams weeks to work through." "Any sign of the reality manipulation abilities that Prometheus mentioned?" Dr. Kim nodded grimly. "We've had 3 incidents of personnel apparently altering local physics. One engineer repaired a fusion reactor by thinking the damaged components back into proper alignment. Another officer stopped a hull breach by somehow convincing the metal to reshape itself." Stone felt the weight of command pressing down on her. The approaching fleet represented the combined military might of 7 species, determined to prevent humanity from becoming a galactic threat. But humanity was becoming something far more dangerous than they could imagine. Admiral called the communication officer. Dr. Carter and Prometheus have arrived. Alex Carter entered the command center with Prometheus's mobile unit, and Stone could see the fear in the historian's eyes. Admiral, Prometheus has shown me what our ancestors were truly capable of. We're not just becoming the species that conquered this galaxy. We're becoming the species that destroyed their original home. Prometheus's holographic form appeared. Admiral Stone, you face the same choice your ancestors faced 300 years ago. You can allow the protocol to complete its activation, which will give humanity the power to survive any threat, but may ultimately destroy the galaxy. Or you can choose to sacrifice that power for the sake of peace. Stone looked at the tactical displays showing the approaching fleet. With humanity's awakening abilities, defeating them would be simple. But Prometheus was right. Once those abilities were fully active, there might be no way to control what humanity became. Is it even possible to reverse the protocol at this point? Yes. But it would require every human to voluntarily surrender their enhanced abilities. They would have to choose to become vulnerable again, trusting that the galaxy will protect them rather than destroy them. Commander Torres interrupted. Admiral, the Coalition fleet is powering weapons. They're demanding an immediate response to their surrender ultimatum. Stone stood at the center of the command center, feeling the full weight of her species' future, pressing down on her. Around her, enhanced humans worked at stations controlling weapons that could remake the galaxy. Above her, an enemy fleet prepared to destroy Earth to prevent humanity from becoming what they feared, and in 12 hours, the choice would be made for them. Open a channel to all human ships and colonies, Stone ordered. It's time to tell our people the truth about what they're becoming, and let them decide what kind of species they want to be. As the communication system activated, Stone realized that the next few hours would determine not just humanity's survival, but the fate of every living being in the galaxy. The question was whether humans could choose to be better than their ancestors, or whether the fear of extinction would turn them into the very monsters the galaxy remembered. Either way, the age of humanity's peaceful integration was ending. What came next would depend on choices that no species should ever have to make.